You wake up exhausted. You have goals, dreams, things you genuinely want to accomplish. Yet somehow you spend hours scrolling through content you won't remember tomorrow. You tell yourself you'll start Monday. Then Monday becomes next month. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're drowning in a sea of meaningless stimulation. Viktor Frankl survived the Nazi concentration camps and emerged with a profound understanding of human motivation. He discovered that the modern epidemic isn't a lack of willpower, it's a loss of meaning. Dopamine is stealing your purpose. Today, we're going to expose the psychological mechanism that's hijacking your motivation. We'll explore why your brain is literally being rewired against your own interests. And most importantly, we'll uncover what Frankl learned in the darkest circumstances imaginable. Insights that can finally set you free from this invisible prison. Digital poison. Every notification on your phone triggers a tiny hit of dopamine. That's not accidental, it's engineered. The average person checks their phone 96 times per day. That's once every 10 minutes during waking hours. Each check floods your reward system with stimulation that your ancestors would have received maybe once a week. Here's what the research shows. When you constantly stimulate your dopamine receptors with low-effort rewards, your brain adapts. It becomes desensitized. The things that used to motivate you, creative projects, meaningful work, deep relationships, suddenly feel boring. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. But what happens when that space disappears? When the stimulus is constant, relentless, designed to eliminate any pause for reflection. Your brain doesn't distinguish between scrolling social media and achieving a real goal. It just knows it got the reward without the effort. And slowly, insidiously, the very concept of effort becomes aversive. This is the first mechanism of modern demotivation, but it goes much deeper than dopamine. Meaning vacuum. Viktor Frankl coined a term that describes our era perfectly, the existential vacuum. He observed that humans can endure almost any suffering, but only if it has meaning. In the concentration camps, Frankl noticed something remarkable. The prisoners who survived weren't always the physically strongest. They were the ones who maintained a sense of purpose, a manuscript to finish, a child waiting for them, a mission to complete. Purpose gives power. Now here's the disturbing parallel to modern life. We've eliminated most physical suffering. We have more comfort, convenience, and entertainment than any generation in history. Yet depression and anxiety rates have skyrocketed. Why? Because we've also eliminated meaning. Frankl wrote that humans have three sources of meaning: creative work, experiencing something or someone deeply, and the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. Social media offers shallow simulations of all three, but delivers none. You create content that disappears in hours. Now that you see this pattern in yourself, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of your psyche with me. There's so much more to uncover. You experience connections that never go deeper than a like button, and you avoid suffering entirely through endless distraction. The result is a generation that has everything except a reason to get out of bed. Comparison trap. Here's a psychological mechanism Frankl couldn't have predicted, but would have understood immediately. Every time you open Instagram, you're not just seeing photos. You're receiving data about where you stand in the social hierarchy. Your brain evolved in small tribes where status comparison was essential for survival. You needed to know your place, but you compared yourself to maybe 50 people, most of whom you actually knew. Now you compare yourself to millions of curated highlight reels. Your reference point for normal is completely distorted. Studies show that the more time people spend on social media, the more they believe others have better lives. This isn't paranoia, it's a statistical inevitability. You're seeing the best moments of the best-looking people presented in the best possible way, and your ancient brain interprets this as evidence that you're failing. The psychological effect is devastating. Why pursue your goals when everyone seems to have already achieved them? Why create when others create better? Why try when trying seems futile? This constant comparison doesn't just make you feel bad. It actively suppresses motivation. And it leads directly to our next mechanism, learned helpless. In the 1960s, psychologist Martin Seligman discovered something profound about motivation. He found that when animals experienced repeated situations where their actions had no effect, they eventually stopped trying entirely, even when circumstances changed. This is called learned helplessness. What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal. Here's the connection to your life. Every time you set a goal and get derailed by distraction, your brain learns something. Every time you make a plan and fail to execute, a pattern strengthens. Eventually, your subconscious begins to believe that your efforts don't matter, that intentions don't lead to outcomes, that you are fundamentally incapable of following through. This isn't character weakness. It's a learned response. Your brain has been trained by repeated experience to expect failure. And here's the cruel irony. The more you consume content about productivity, motivation, and success, without actually taking action, the deeper the helplessness becomes. Trapped, you're not unmotivated. You've been conditioned to believe your motivation doesn't matter. But understanding this mechanism is the first step to breaking free. Pleasure paradox. Frankl made an observation that seems counterintuitive, but becomes obvious once you understand it. He said that happiness cannot be pursued directly. It must ensue as a side effect of dedicating yourself to something greater than yourself. Chase happiness, it runs away. Think about the last time you felt genuinely fulfilled. It probably wasn't during passive consumption. It was during creation, connection, or contribution. Yet our entire digital infrastructure is designed to deliver pleasure directly, bypassing meaning entirely. This creates what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill on steroids. You experience the pleasure without the purpose, the reward without the effort, the dopamine without the accomplishment. And your brain, designed to seek meaning through struggle, finds itself in an environment of effortless pleasure. The result is a strange paradox. You have access to more pleasure than any human in history, yet you feel increasingly empty. The solution isn't more pleasure. It's not even less pleasure. It's reconnecting pleasure to purpose and meaning. And this requires understanding what Frankl called the will to meaning. Will to meaning. Freud believed humans were primarily driven by pleasure. Adler thought it was power. But Frankl discovered something deeper. He called it the will to meaning, an innate drive to find purpose and significance in existence. In the concentration camps, Frankl observed that prisoners who lost their sense of meaning simply gave up. They would lie in their bunks, refuse food, and die within days. Not from physical causes, but from what he called an existential vacuum. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Frankl often quoted these words, and he proved them true in the most extreme circumstances imaginable. The prisoners who survived found meaning even in suffering. One had a scientific manuscript to complete. Another had a child in another country. Frankl himself maintained a vision of lecturing about his experiences to help others. Here's the profound implication for modern life. Your lack of motivation isn't about willpower or discipline. It's about meaning. Your brain is designed to mobilize massive resources when something matters. When nothing matters, those resources stay dormant. Purpose creates power. But how do you find meaning in a world designed to distract you from the question? 3 pathways. Frankl identified 3 pathways to meaning that have withstood decades of psychological research. The first is creative values, meaning through what you give to the world. This could be work, art, ideas, or any contribution that outlasts you. The second is experiential values, meaning through what you receive from the world. Love, beauty, truth, deep connection with another human being. The third is attitudinal values, meaning through the stance you take toward unavoidable suffering. 1. Create something meaningful. 2. Experience deep connection. 3. Transform suffering into growth. Here's what's crucial. Overstimulation attacks all 3 pathways. It replaces creation with consumption. It substitutes real experience with shallow simulation. And it helps you avoid suffering entirely, eliminating the opportunity for transformation. The solution isn't to add more activities to your life. It's to reconnect with these fundamental sources of meaning. Create, experience, transform. But there's a catch. Meaning requires sacrifice. It demands you choose something and let go of infinite other possibilities. And in an age of infinite options, that choice feels increasingly impossible. Let me show you why. Paradox of choice. Psychologist Barry Schwartz documented something that Frankl intuited decades earlier. More choice doesn't lead to more happiness. Past a certain point, it leads to paralysis, anxiety, and regret. When you have 3 options, choosing is easy. When you have 300, choosing feels impossible. Every choice highlights everything you're giving up. This is maximized in the digital age. Every moment you have access to infinite entertainment, infinite information, infinite potential connections. Choosing one thing means sacrificing all others. So you choose nothing. You scroll. You browse. You keep options open while life passes by. Frankl understood that meaning requires commitment. You cannot find purpose while keeping all doors open. You must walk through one door and close the others behind you. Life can be pulled by goals, just as surely as it can be pushed by drives. The unmotivated feeling isn't because you lack options. It's because you have too many options and commitment to none. Meaning emerges from constraints, from dedication, from the willingness to sacrifice alternatives. This leads us to the most counterintuitive insight of all. Embrace struggle. Everything in modern life is optimized for comfort and convenience. Instant delivery, seamless experiences, friction eliminated at every turn. But here's what psychology consistently shows. Humans don't thrive in comfort. We thrive in meaningful struggle. Frankl didn't just survive the concentration camps. He found meaning in them. Not despite the suffering, but through his relationship to it. He chose to observe, to learn, to prepare to help others understand what he witnessed. This transformed unbearable circumstances into a laboratory of human psychology. Now I'm not suggesting you need extreme suffering to find meaning, but I am suggesting that your addiction to comfort is part of the problem. Every time you choose the easy path, the instantly gratifying option, the frictionless experience, you're training your brain that effort isn't worth it. Comfort is not the goal of life, meaning is. The motivated version of you isn't waiting to be unlocked by the right video or the perfect morning routine. It's waiting on the other side of voluntary difficulty, of chosen struggle, of commitment to something that demands genuine effort. This brings us to the practical question: becoming free. So how do you escape this trap? How do you reclaim motivation in a world designed to steal it? Frankl's answer was deceptively simple. You must find your why, not a generic purpose that sounds good, not someone else's mission that you've adopted. Your why. The thing that would make you get out of bed even if no one was watching, even if no one ever knew. Find your why. Start by auditing your inputs. What are you consuming? Is it moving you toward meaning or away from it? Then create intentional friction, make distraction harder, make meaningful activities the path of least resistance. Most importantly, commit, choose something, close other doors. Accept that you cannot have everything and that this limitation is actually freedom. Freedom is not doing whatever you want. Freedom is wanting what you actually choose. Freedom is aligning your actions with your deepest values. Freedom is having a reason to say no to infinite pleasures because you've said yes to something greater. The chains aren't external. The key has always been in your hands. Viktor Frankl walked out of Auschwitz with a truth that the modern world desperately needs to hear. Motivation isn't about willpower. It's not about discipline or habits or productivity systems. It's about meaning. When you have a compelling why, the how becomes almost irrelevant. You find energy you didn't know you had. You overcome obstacles that seemed impossible. You wake up driven rather than drained. Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're a meaning-seeking creature trapped in a meaning-starved environment. The solution isn't more motivation content. It's less consumption and more creation. Less scrolling and more living. Less keeping options open and more committing fully. Choose, commit, become. If you made it this far, comment meaning, found if you're ready to stop drowning and start living with purpose. Welcome to the Psyche Project. If this gave you something to think about, subscribe for more. Understanding yourself is the work of a lifetime.